Breaking news, I haven't made up my mind about pulling out of Paris deal, says Trump after White House sources said he was certain to ditch climate change accord. President Donald Trump says he will be making a decision very soon on the Paris Climate Change Accord, and he continues to entertain arguments on both sides of the issue. "I'm hearing from a lot of people, both ways," Trump said Wednesday afternoon of the politicking. The president would not say which way he was leaning, telling a reporter who asked if he was likely to get out, "You are going to find out very soon." He offered a similar response to a reporter who caught him outside the White House an hour later. "We'll be talking about Paris very soon," he said of an announcement. After a period of intense lobbying that spanned the globe, and his administration, White House officials told several news outlets earlier in the day that Trump was pulling the U.S. out of the international agreement. Hours later, after the initial reports ran, an official told AP the administration was looking for caveats in the language and Trump's mind was not fully made up. A source close to the talks who favors withdrawal told DailyMail.com the situation was fluid, too. It's looking good, but we're not totally out of the woods yet," said the Competitive Enterprise Institute's Myron Ebel. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer would not say whether the earlier reports were true in an off-camera briefing, telling a reporter at one point that he obviously would not know if Trump had arrived at a decision. "I think the president's comments on this, that he'll be making a decision in the next few days, stand," Spicer said in a shorter than usual session with the press. European allies had begged Trump not to ditch the pact last week, and the White House said the president was considering their position. Wednesday morning, White House sources said he was pulling out, setting off worldwide condemnation led by the United Nations Secretary-General. Trump's eldest daughter, Ivanka, had advised her father against an exit, as well as a series of world leaders, including the Pope and France's new president, Emmanuel Macron. Billionaire Elon Musk said he would end his role advising Trump on manufacturing if the White House went ahead with quitting the Paris deal. Pulling out will mean the U.S. joins Russia, Iran, North Korea and a string of third-world countries in not putting the agreement into action. Just two countries are not in the deal at all, one of them war-torn Syria, the other Nicaragua. The president said Wednesday morning in a tweet that he would be making an announcement over the next few days after Axios said he was moving forward with plans to pull the U.S. from it. The news outlet said Trump had decided to stick with a campaign promise to pull the U.S. out of the accord that commits participants to drastically reducing greenhouse gases, siding with conservatives in his party over his daughter. Reuters similarly reported that Trump had tasked his EPA administrator with finding a way out. Trump said after his foreign trip that he would make an announcement this week about Paris. He teased his plans again in a Wednesday morning tweet that said, "I will be announcing my decision on the Paris Accord over the next few days. Make America great again." Axios reported that Trump has taken a position, it's the method of withdrawal that's still being worked out. The administration is determining between a formal exit from just the Paris Agreement, a process that could take years, and a total rejection of the United Nations climate change framework that serves as the basis for the pact. Asked by DailyMail.com whether that report and others like it were wrong, and the president hasn't made a decision yet, Spicer hedged at his Wednesday afternoon briefing that the White House kept off camera. "No, what I am saying is that when the president has a decision to make, he'll let it be known. I don't think whether it's a personnel decision or any other action that we tend to get ahead of the president. He's the ultimate decider, and when he has a decision to make, I'll let you know." Ebel, the energy expert at STC who was also the head of Trump's EPA team during his transition, said just before Spicer's gaggle that it was his belief that Trump will say he's getting the U.S. out, but we're not celebrating yet. He told DailyMail.com he was advised by a White House official, "Don't take this as a done deal until announced." "The other side is making a furious counterattack now," Ebel said. U.S. officials have insisted that Trump has kept an open mind on the agreement that 147 nations consented to and wanted to hear from world leaders on the topic as he traveled through Europe. As his 9 days abroad came to a close, Trump's advisors claimed he had not taken a firm position on Paris and would not until he returned to the U.S. The president is thinking about what his options are and has taken in what he learned from world leaders today, Trump's chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, said Friday. I think his views are evolving, and he came here to learn and he came here to get smarter and he came here to hear people's, world leaders, views. Spicer on Wednesday said Trump had listened to a lot of people both here and industry leaders. As Director Cohn mentioned last week, he's consulted with foreign leaders, he's talked to industry leaders, he's had a lot of input and ultimately he'll make a decision. Emmanuel Macron, the newly elected French president, said at a weekend summit in Italy he was sure Trump would back the deal after listening to his G7 counterparts. That hope appeared to have been quickly dashed. At a Wednesday news conference, a government spokesman said Macron had told a cabinet meeting France would be very proactive in working to ensure the Paris Accord was implemented. Depending on the stance some people or others are taking, we'll have to be very proactive for France to be the homeland of the fight against climate change, the spokesman said. Macron had asked his ministers to take a number of initiatives, with our European partners or directly in France. European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič said of a U.S. pullout, "It would be disappointing, but I really do not think this would change the course of mankind. There is a much stronger expectation from our partners across the world, from Africa, Asia and China, that Europe should assume leadership in this effort, and we are ready to do that." Trump's most senior aides and cabinet secretaries have lined up on either side of the issue. Cohn joined Trump's daughter and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster in a campaign to remain in the accord that Barack Obama's administration negotiated. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt and Vice President Mike Pence were strongly against staying in the pact that requires the U.S. to cut emissions by 26 to 28% from 2005 levels by 2025. Interior Secretary Ryan Zink, Domestic Policy Council Director Andrew Bremberg, and 3 senior advisors to the president, Kellyanne Conway, Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, came in behind the Environmental Protection Agency head and the vice president. A senior official told DailyMail.com as Trump prepared to make his first trip abroad that administration lawyers was battling over a proposal that would allow the U.S. remain in the agreement, even if it does take steps to meet its nationally determined contribution to emissions reduction. That is not something that we can support, obviously, the source said of the Obama negotiated NDC that starts at 17% in 2020 and ramps up. Some administration lawyers said a strategy like the one that was being debated would create significant legal risk for the United States, and it would be better for Trump to stick to his campaign plan of full withdrawal. Kushner is said to be leaning in that direction now, too. His basic position is that the standards need to be changed, and the question is, can you stay in the Paris Agreement, and can you stay in the Paris Agreement with the changes? An administration official familiar with the situation told DailyMail.com. The United States' European allies argued in private meetings with Trump that the U.S., the world's largest polluter after China, must remain in the agreement that urges aggressive action to protect the environment. They signed a communique at the end of the G7 summit that excluded the United States so they could reiterate their position. Hoping, perhaps, that a divine intervention would do the trick, the Pope also tried to sway Trump when they met at the Vatican last Wednesday. The head of the Catholic Church presented the President and First Lady with a copy of his 184-page encyclical on the environment during a gift-giving ceremony. Trump promised the religious leader that he'd be reading it. As Trump waffled on the issue ahead of a self-imposed deadline to make a decision before the G7 summit that was shot after Trump bumped up his departure date to add a Middle East swing to his trip, conservative organizations prodded the Republican president to stay on track. A group of heavyweights sent the president a letter reminding him that withdrawal is a key part of your plan to protect U.S. energy producers and manufacturers from regulatory warfare. The Competitive Enterprise Institute followed up with ads that ran in nearly 70 markets the day before Trump departed for Saudi Arabia, urging him to keep his campaign promise to cancel the environmental accord. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Environment and Public Works Chairman John Barrasso, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Lee and 15 other Republican senators sent Trump a letter of their own last Thursday, putting additional pressure on him to yank the U.S. out. The missive tipped the scales, according to Axios. Foremost was the claim of significant litigation risk that could upend your administration's ability to fulfill its goal of rescinding Obama-era regulations like the Clean Power Plan. Trump rescinded his predecessor's plan to cut carbon emissions by 32% by the year 2030 in a March 28 executive order that was highly celebrated conservatives. The United States' ability to meet its nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement hinged on the implementation of carbon reduction plan that Trump said he'd work to toss out. Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, warned Trump on Wednesday that his actions are likely to have long-lasting repercussions on the U.S. economy and the United States' standing internationally. "I think that our credibility will be undermined," he said on CNN. "Other countries like China will fill the gap with green energy jobs and surpass us in those industries," he argued on the network's New Day program. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi also argued that withdrawal would send a strong message to the marketplace to direct innovative, entrepreneurial investments in the clean energy economy elsewhere. "The majority of Americans in both parties know that climate change is real, and want clear, decisive action to arrest its dire effects," she said in a jab at the president who once claimed climate change is a hoax. Democratic lawmakers hammered Trump in statements that called the impending retreat catastrophic and dangerous. Dianne Feinstein, a California Democrat, asked Trump to reconsider before he makes a reckless mistake that will have serious and dire consequences. Putting the argument in the context of the Syrian refugees Trump has tried to keep out of the U.S., Feinstein said, "The world was not prepared for 5 million refugees from Syria. What will we do when many millions more are displaced by sea level rise, agricultural failures or disease pandemics?" The Sierra Club, a liberal environmental group, said the Paris Agreement would hold fast, regardless of what Trump does, in a statement that slammed him as the nation's climate denier-in-chief. "Make no mistake, the Paris Agreement was adopted after decades of climate advocacy by concerned citizens across America and around the world, and it certainly will not be derailed by the ignorance of one man," said Sierra Club Executive Director Michael Brune. Republicans likely who'd cheered Trump on not surprisingly came to his defense as he took fire from the left for the expected announcement. The decision to withdraw will afford Americans greater economic opportunity and cheaper, more flexible energy choices in the future, the Utah senator said.